10 games into this Indiana Pacers season, what have we learned about this team and their inconsistencies with low valleys and high peaks, plus deeper dives on Tyrese Haliburton, Benn Mathruin, and Pascal Siakam with Dave Searle, all on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Tuesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, much to discuss, a rare two-day gap between games to really assess what's going on with the Pacers. Did a little bit of this with Ethan last week. We get to it again with Dave Searle today, the podfather of Pacers podcasting, formerly with Miller Time Podcast. 10 games into the season for the Pacers. Perfect time to dive into lots of stuff. Really high peaks, beating some great teams. Really low valleys with some rough nights. Why is that? What's going on with Tyrese Haliburton and his recent surge of play? Benn Mathruin looks amazing. Why? We get a lot of thoughts about Benn Mathruin today, and not enough has been made with Pascal Siakam start to the season. We're going to make it. I'm going to do it again tomorrow, probably. Lots of fun stuff today with Dave. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's just get right to it. 10 games into the 2024-25 Pacers season, and it has been a weird one. I have never seen two Achilles injuries this close. I've never seen this wide of results, despite the Pacers of last year kind of being similar in that way. And there is much to discuss about this 5-5 team riding a high after beating the Knicks on Sunday. And who better to do that than the podfather himself? Is this 10, 12, 15 years of podcasting about the Pacers? For you, it's Dave Searle, formerly the king of the Miller Time Podcast. Dave, you are at Pacers Knicks. How are you? How are you enjoying this Pacers season experience?
It's interesting. You would hope that the Pacers would come out and just build off of being in the Eastern Conference Finals and just really start kicking, start the season. You see how well like the Cavaliers are doing, and you get a little jealous. You wish that you were kind of in that position. I guess it's a new flavor of Pacers every game, and in a way that keeps it a little bit spicy, I suppose. On a personal level, I've got season tickets, not full season, just like a partial season tickets package for the first time outside of being in Area 55 for several years. That technically I was a season ticket holder for $0, which is nice. Thank you, Roy Hibbert. But I've been able to take my son to games a lot now, so that's been really cool. That's the number one thing on my mind is seeing him like go to the games and share. He went to the Boston game and he went to the Knicks game. Those are two really good games, and
so he is like a required attendee.
I know, right? I mean, I'm kind of, it was funny because I think it was last year I took him to a game and I got him excited. He was all hyped up and he was like, okay, this is the moment we're going to have a breakthrough. And he's really going to start loving the Pacers. We went to like the season opener and that was like a crazy game too. And everybody was really hyped and that was a super fun one. And then he couldn't wait to go back. I'm like, finally it's happening. And it was the Magic game. It was the second one he went to. And it was so horrible.
Oh, geez.
Oh, it's just an awful game. And he just had the worst time ever. And then it just that set it all the way back. I got him back in for the playoffs. We went to a few playoff games. He watched the playoff series. You'll be glad to know that we watched the Knicks Pacers game on TV. And he said, is that the guy who makes his players too tired? Like, yes, that's it. That's it. That's not similar. All right. That's right. You got it. That's right, buddy.
He's ready for an ESPN desk job, dude. That's it, right?
Yeah, that's all you need. That's all you need to do. And but yeah, but it's been a good luck charm. Obviously the games have been really good. He's been really engaged. He always wants to like buy Pacers. He really wants that like Pacers chain. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah, he's a big fan of that. So that's been fun, but it's been less fun trying to figure out what this team is or where they're going. This is a good time to jump in though, because that Knicks win, that was something else. That was the future we all dreamed of when Mathurin got off to such a hot start in his rookie season. Like if you stopped at Thanksgiving of his rookie year and you transported to today, you'd be like, oh yeah, no, totally sweet. Okay, yeah, almost got 40. That's cool. But then, all the things in between, maybe not as much. But obviously that was amazing to see. Second time you've seen a pair of Pacers score 35 in a game. Lots of players playing good in that game. That was just a really special thing to watch. And I guess that seems like the team that we were kind of, I mean, obviously that was a great performance, but like the ballpark of that seems like something that I think Pacers fans were looking for a little bit more consistently this season. I guess the question is, was this an unleashing of, okay, maybe there's some pressure, there's some expectations, Haliburton shots off. Yes, we have injuries, but the top level guys kind of coalescing and being a driving force of the team going forward, or it's just this another case of the Pacers once again rising to the occasion when there's a tough opponent, and then they're going to just tumble right backwards again once they play another crappy team.
Yeah, it's the thing that's made it weird is maybe the wrong word. Like they're 5-5. I don't think anyone thinks they're playing good, right? So I guess they're like,
Right.
okay, that's acceptable, I suppose. Like last year, this happened, right? Last year they lost a lot of games that everybody thought they should win, including themselves, and they won a lot of games that nobody thought they should win, right? And so
Right.
maybe that's just who they are because that's what's happening this year. What's different this year to me is the losses that they've had that everybody's like, oh, that can't happen. I would say there's two really like that and a couple not as much like that. The two really like that would be Philly with just Maxey and like
Right.
they could barely score that whole night, and the Charlotte game where they got their butt kicked. They obviously lost to bad teams last year. They never like looked pathetic in those games. They've done that twice already. However, they looked awesome for 40 minutes, 45 minutes if you count overtime against Boston. They just looked great against the Knicks for basically a full game. They played 48 great minutes against Dallas. What's made this 10-game start pretty jarring to me compared to last year's inconsistencies is it feels like the gap between best and worst Pacers is wider. And that is what's been really kind of fascinating for a team that, like you said, the thought was they're going to come out and look great because they have continuity and they can build off of a conference finals run. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And, I think a lot of that does kind of stem from, I mean, Haliburton had ups and downs like any other player, but he was able to bring like that base level of production for most of the season. Obviously he got injured and we saw that change a little bit. And I think there's been a lot of speculation of like long-term lingering injuries. Is that something that's affecting him? I mean, it just didn't seem like consistently shots being short. That sure seemed like a sign of like everything else is kind of in line, but it's just short. Is that back bothering him, hamstrings bothering him, that kind of thing? Is that something where he is going to be a little bit off and on this season throughout his career? I mean, who knows? It does kind of seem like maybe he should be peppering in a little bit more rest. But that's just pure speculation from, someone who doesn't really know exactly what's going on kind of with him physically. I thought against the Knicks, I mean, it seemed he's put up, he's been productive and had good games before in the season. That was the first time it really seemed like Haliburton was like truly back and he's doing the skipping after he's hitting a shot, but he just seemed to be a lot more playful and creative with the ball.
Agreed.
I mean, that's one thing that seemed earlier in the season. He gets the pick. He's just driving straight into the lane. He's not using that. Okay, calm down. Put a guy in jail. Sometimes going slower is better than going fast. Taking your time and then hitting floaters with confidence instead of rushing it a little bit, seeming a little bit tentative. Taking your time and just, if your back hurts, okay. But if you break down the defense to the point where no one is around you and no one is contesting you, you can calm down and hit it, I think, kind of in whatever condition it is. And so he just seems to be taking his time a little bit more. And, like that kind of that creative spark that you need to be a creator, that seems to be there a lot more. Now, it does help, again, hitting those floaters and like taking it to the rim and actually hitting the layups. If you can't hit those shots, then the defense isn't afraid. The defense doesn't collapse. And then there's no one to pass it to and you're not scoring it. It all collapses. And so that was the first time I really saw the full Haliburton package. And of course you saw the whole team really benefit from that. Is that going to be a flash in the pan thing that we're going to see every once in a while when everything kind of comes together? Or did he just unlock something that's going to be there for the rest of the season? No way to tell. Obviously hoping for the latter.
Yeah, it's almost like there's like three tiers of Haliburton this year. One is just like who is this? Who is that? There's no pace or zip or that creativity you just said.
Right.
That was really like the first 3 games, maybe a little bit in Charlotte. Then there's the pace is there, but like it's not as creative. Like he can get by guys, but the in between part's not there. So he's maybe half of the games have been that, maybe a little over half have been that, right? And then the rest are what you just described. Where I think Dallas he played like this, and I think parts of Boston he did in New York for sure, where it's creativity and zip and pace, and just like the guy that was there last year that was amazing, even though the scoring numbers and shooting percentages aren't the same. I can at least acknowledge that he's doing those things in those games where it's like, okay, he's creating shots he's good at, or he's finishing in the lane, or just being such a dynamic offensive threat that just his presence on the floor is like, yep, they're the better team, right? Even if he's not making shots himself. And so I think he's recently shown more of that package, and the start of the season was showing more of like who is that guy? What is going on? They're playing through other guys more often. Some of that's necessity because they've had other point guards hurt. But that's been interesting too, because last year when he was hurt, it was a little different where it was 20 minutes a game, and then it was all or nothing for a while. And so it's just different where I feel like he's coming out of a slump a little bit, and his take on it, even if he is hurt, let's just push to the side whether he is or isn't. His take on it's been like, I'm in a slump, I'll get out of it, right? Like regardless if he's hurt or not, I've got to shoot through it. Buddy Hield always said the same thing last year. And I think that the way that his teammates have approached it and he's approached it means they believe that's true also. Like they're letting him just take as many as he wants if he needs to get out of it. And I believe now, after seeing the way he's played the last 10 days or so, that he's probably right. Like the percentage of shots that he's taking that are open is still very high. He's shooting well from inside 10 feet. He's just not making them. And you're right that a lot of them are short. So maybe that will continue if he's truly banged up. But it does feel like he's figured out what he needs to do, even at his current physical state, to be really good, if not the amazing player from the start of last year. And that, I think, will help them settle into consistency at some point. That just hasn't happened yet. Everyone, short little break here. We got to talk about the good people over at Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about the gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. So say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered to the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LocdownNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LocdownNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LocdownNBA. $45 upfront payment required. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower than 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for more details.
As they kind of search for more consistency, obviously the emergence of Mathurin is going to help with that tremendously, because his ability to get to the rim, put pressure on defenses by scoring and making teams really truly collapse, which is going to lead to a high free throw rate for him that he's always had, but can kind of bring into the table. That's another piece that can kind of smooth out those inconsistencies. And it's just been really awesome to see this year. Well, hoping to see it last year. He was still young coming into this year. That overall smoothness, the overall polishing to his game. Didn't really see it in the first 2 years. There'd just always be stretches where there'd be an obvious pass that he wasn't able to miss. Defensively, just getting completely lost, just getting taken out by a simple screen. That always is going to be a little bit of that. That's what mainly kept him on the bench. Obviously, with injuries, having him have an opportunity to be in the starting lineup a whole lot more has been great. And the thing that got Ben Shepherd on the floor so much early was his lack of those lapses. So he didn't have nearly as much upside, but he just didn't really make a whole lot of mistakes. A couple little rookie sprinkles here and there, but for the most part, he was where he was supposed to be. He moved the ball when he's supposed to move it. Benn Mathruin's really just brought that to his game this year. I just can't really think of too many situations where I thought, Oh man, why is he taking that? How did he not just find that easy shovel? I mean, like Myles Turner's just sitting there. He's got 3 defenders on him. Just give him the ball. He's been making those passes, and he hasn't really stepped up the game defensively tremendously. So I mean, everything else has always kind of been there, and it's really awesome to see that come together. My one real main question with him right now is the shooting. I mean, again, we saw this in the beginning of his rookie year. Blazing hot in October, kept it up pretty well in November, fell off a complete cliff in December, and that was pretty much stayed there for the rest of the year. Is he going to be able to bring that level of shooting consistently the entire time while he's in the starting lineup? But I would say that his overall game has been elevated to a point where he doesn't necessarily have to do that. You'd love to see it for him to be a true like 3rd-star level player, which, the Pacers have a lot of options for the future to build on what they have. Their number one choice would probably be just Mathurin becomes a awesome plus player, very, very strong all-star. The sky's the limit for him. That would be the easiest path to them getting a lot better, is just to home grow another player of that level. But he is now showing to me in the beginning part of this season that he can hold that starting spot in the way that he needs to. And that's been one of the kind of biggest keys to the Pacers this season, and something that hopefully doesn't regress, but doesn't seem like it should. That kind of guy, he clearly did the work over the summer to get to where he is in his game right there. I don't see any reason why that can't sustain. And yeah, he almost scored 40 points. Obviously, that's very exciting. Man, I wish that dunk counted. That foul.
He
was
wished
so
that
bad.
dunk counted. The second he looked at the scoreboard, I was like, oh, he wanted the 40 so bad.
What a way to do it. That would have been really cool. But, if he just would have scored 25 points in that game, I still would have been just as excited about his future, because, he has proven, at least to this point in the season, that he truly can hold a spot as a starter. And that is a really big deal for the Pacers.
Yeah, somehow, I totally agree about his passing, which is really interesting because his assist rate's lower than last year. But I honestly don't care. I don't care, because his passes per game are up and his passes per minute are way up. And it's just like, it's not even, I get it when a teammate's wide open and he passes them and they score, that's great. But it's just when he gets in the paint and he sees 3 guys, even just turning around and passing it to someone else, right?
Exactly.
That is a massive leap forward in what he can do. And so his turnover rate's way down as a result of that. That helps with his fit with the starters. The efficiency, look, he's making 50% of his threes for the season now because he just went bananas against the Knicks. But before that, a lot of his efficiency growth was like, oh, this dude's just going to make every shot from inside 10 feet, basically, right? Even now, he's still at 69% at the rim. His 3 to 10 feet percentage is a career best. His 10 to 16% or distance is a career best. So he has this crazy true shooting because he's finishing everything in the paint. And this was noticeable in the preseason. It's not that much faster, but his reaction time when he catches to do whatever he's going to do is just quicker enough that everything fits better. And so when you add in more efficiency, obviously when you're making 50% of your threes, because he had that bananas game, great. But what's made him fit better is all that little stuff, the finishing in the paint, those passes, less turnovers, doing it quicker. And so that already made him a better fit as a starter. And it just so happens that he looks unstoppable basically in half these games. And his defense is better. I think he had some rough defensive games early in the season, but that's really picked up in the last, I'd say 2 weeks. So I think it's over, right? The way he's played the last 5-6 games, it's he has to start forever now pretty much, unless he totally regresses on one end of the floor. But every little thing they've needed him to be better at to blend who he was as a rookie and who it looked like he could be and who the Pacers needed him to be to play the way that they want to play is kind of happening. And so as we talked about with Haliburton and the pace, their pace hasn't been as high. Well, that's kind of suited him and allowed him to kind of go crazy, right? So they've really figured out, I think they want to play a little faster still, but I think the team has figured out the balance of who they are and letting Mathurin be so awesome that he's carried them to 2-3 wins this year.
Yeah, and guys that kind of held his place that had to fulfill his role, like Ben Shepherd, Aaron Nesmith, even Buddy Hield in the past. These were all guys that I'm sure they might have all combined to have an assist a game, right? But but they always moved the ball where it was supposed to go and when it was supposed to go. There was a lot more to being part of an offense than just, being a good passer. Obviously involves creating and fighting angles that no one else does, but you don't need to do that. There's also the level that you just have to move the ball when it's supposed to move. We really don't have any kind of real stat that I can see other than just a pure lineup efficiency, I guess, that you can kind of see that when players are coming in and out. But that sort of ability is so crucial if you're going to be a starter. And we've seen players who have come off the bench and have been that classic six-man guy. Jamal Crawford did not have that ability to know exactly when to move the ball. But you know what? He was just an amazing one-on-one guy. Just let him cook. That's fine. I mean, if that was the way that Mathurin was going to be, then that was the way it was going to be. But, the fact that he has figured out how to unlock that extra bit to be that glue within an offensive unit is why he's starting. And then, obviously injuries have been created that opportunity. But, it isn't like I'm sure there's going to be a temptation to say, oh, they're finally starting him and he's finally blossoming. What were they doing this entire time? No, he has molded himself into the kind of guy that can be part of a five-man unit. And if you can't do that, you can't start in the NBA. It's just not going to work. You're never going to be able to score enough points and be good enough, unless you're just an amazing defensive team and you're just letting one guy solo. But, that's really an offensive, a team building strategy that's extremely difficult to do in the modern era anyway. But the point is, he's been able to mold that. And, it kind of made me think when I was watching that about Anthony Richardson and what's kind of happening with the Colts, where he has
something
such
happening?
It's been quiet over in the Colts land, but there's a little bit to talk about. So, but I mean, obviously his ability to bomb passes and throws 70-yard throws, being knocked backwards like on a dime, and truck players when he's running with the ball, and his freak athleticism and all that stuff. It's obvious how much that stuff is going to translate into NFL success. But you just can't be a good quarterback in the NFL if you can't recognize a good check down and hit the guy in stride. It's just not going to work. Like, you just can't do it. And there's been pretty good quarterbacks that have just never figured that out and never had any success. And a guy like Richardson, who is the most accurate overall, if you can't do stuff like that, he's just not going to play. And that's kind of been my thought of the Colts benching, is like, okay, you got to take a break until you figure that out. Like, do that small stuff, because you're completing 44% of your passes. You got to shore that up to be a quarterback. And then you can unlock everything else that's happening. And then you can get game experience. And then you can start making mistakes. And then, you throw a crucial interception and you'll learn from it and blah, 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 blah. But if you can't hit, Jonathan Taylor for a 7-yard game on first down, you can't be an NFL quarterback. And until you get there, you can't go. And the reason why I'm going on that little tangent is because it feels like the same sort of thing has happened with Mathurin to a certain degree. Obviously, he doesn't have the pressure of being, he was a 6th pick and Richards was a 4th pick, but it's different in the NFL, obviously, if you're that high.
And still the highest Pacers pick since Rick Smits, right? Like, that's something.
As the guy in front of me who Googled Benn Mathruin during the game found out. Oh, he was a 6th pick. He was a 6th pick. Oh, yeah. But, you're the franchise quarterback, and you are maybe the guy that some people have said is actually the best quarterback in this draft. And, there's a lot of pressure on you, and you're trying to lead an NFL team, which is a lot more difficult than, being a shooting guard on an NBA team from a preparation standpoint, from a skill standpoint, I think. But the same kind of thing happened is, I think that my read with Carlisle has always been like, you're going to be that guy and you're not going to be part of a unit cohesively, or you're going to grow into it. You choose. I mean, be the 6th man of the year, be a starter. You show me what you want to do. And it seemed like, to me, that process of, you had an awesome start to your rookie year, but we're going to make you get there before you start. And this Ben Shepherd dude is going to start right away, and it's probably going to eat at you a little bit. But look, he's doing all the little things that you needed to do. I think that my read is that the Pacers kind of went through that process with Mathurin a little bit, but it seems to have worked really well, and that's not easy to do. And it seems like he's been working his off to get there. So props to him. It's amazing to see. It's fun to watch someone not just be amazing from the rookie season, but grow into that player. I really hope he has an amazing year and continues to go on, because that's been really fun to watch.
I agree. And it should be noted that Carlisle and Mathurin have both always talked about two things that are relevant to what he just said. One, Mathurin has always said, I want to be coached hard. Like before he got drafted, he was saying that to the Pacers. And two is Carlisle gushed about Shepherd all the time. He would call him like a star in his role, right? Constantly, right? Like that really matters and shows exactly what you're talking about. Like they really wanted guys to settle into that. One more break here, guys. Got to talk about the great people over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle that NFL action and get on the NBA action with FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place bets live on the NFL and NBA all in one place. It happens to all of us. When you get that hunch, it's the middle of a game, you know what's coming, and you want to bet on it while you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, so you can be as informed as possible, and that's all on the same place where you place your bets. You can nail the timing and get everything right. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Can we talk about someone who's not going to get talked about much for lots of important reasons? And that's Pascal Siakam. Dave, I get that Mathurin has looked awesome and has been their best player at times. Haliburton's been their best player at times and definitely was last year. There are 12 players in the NBA averaging 20 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. Pascal Siakam is one of them. So often, their only good player on a given night or like their best player on the floor, making more threes this year. He has just been rock solid this season. I don't think he's going to make 45% of his threes all season, but like the way he just kind of, their pace isn't working right now, or like there's not a great matchup advantage anywhere on the floor. Like, gosh, this other team is kind of surging. And then he just does Siakam stuff for 2 minutes and scores 6 points. And like all of a sudden, the things feel cozy again. Like he has been so good this year. Definitely think he's been an all-star in the East. And I get that the guard play, both Mathurin smashing through his expectations and Haliburton being below them, has been bigger stories. I almost feel bad that we're not talking about Siakam more because he's been so metronome-like with his consistency and playing at that level with those stats. He's been very good.
Big weapon for the Pacers. They seem to be very good at getting him in the mismatches constantly. I mean, that's something that they are really hunting with Siakam, and they've used that to a really great effect. Trying to keep up with, I know the Pacers have been playing as fast this year, but keeping up with their overall youth and athleticism, playing the guys are a little bit smaller. They're using Siakam to punish them a little bit on that. History repeated itself a little bit. He seems, from a personality standpoint, like kind of the opposite of David West in a way, but, like seeing this guy who is, playing, kind of big position, and he's it was on another team for a long time, but kind of in that late 20s, early 30s, came over to the Pacers as a little bit of a calming presence for them, being like the older veteran in the locker room that they can kind of go to when they need to get a crucial bucket or just kind of calm down a hot streak. It's kind of fun to see that sort of parallel. I've been seeing the social media stuff from him. He just seems like a really cool guy, which is always fun to see. And he seems to really, we saw this, the reason why they made the trade in the first place, because he was confident he was going to sign. I don't know why, but he was super enthusiastic about living in Indianapolis and being an Indiana Pacer. Beats me, but good for you. I'm glad that you're happy. And like, he seems to genuinely be very, very settled in and comfortable with the franchise and his role here. And at least my read so far with both Siakam and Haliburton is that they are happy to be playing really well, not super concerned about which guy's scoring more points or which guy's getting the credit for it. I do get the vibe right now that if like he was the all-star this year, that everybody would be really excited about it. And then like Mathurin does next year and everybody's cool. At least so far, it kind of seems like that's sort of the vibe. And like, you have to have that personality coming out of your stars. And Siakam is definitely leading the way on that. So, it has become the guy where if there's a crucial bucket, as long as it's from three and not the free throw line, then I feel really good about Siakam shooting it. Like if it's
what is going on?
if it's a spot-up shot, I'm
crazy.
very excited. I
need to, man, if only I had access to ask him this question. He takes his free throw a step off the line, and I don't know where that came from for him. And like, he's never been, his free throw percentage is fine. It's not great or bad, but this year it hasn't been awesome, obviously. But it's like, okay, it goes in enough that I'm not going to be like, what are you doing? But it is kind of just different.
What's his wingspan? 6'8". What's his wingspan at? He's got pretty long arms.
Wingspan's up there with one of those things that I just know so little about that is actually important to players or basketball. I don't know. He does have long arms, so yes.
There's a reason why short people are better at shooting through throws than tall people generally. And part of it is because of selection. There's so many people that are, a little over 6 foot. And so the best shooters make the NBA. And that's part of it. There's just not as many tall people. But it's also a physics thing because you have to, like, when you shoot, it's like if you're making it like a cartoon about basketball, you draw. I'm trying to get my fingers in here.
This is why people tune in, Dave. Let's go.
You draw a perfect arc from like you do. It's like you draw a perfect arc, but you don't shoot like that. You push it forward and it drops. It's not a center point. Like it kind of goes like that a little bit. And so when you're lower, that gets exaggerated and it helps because you kind of I'm forgetting the fingers. I can't pull this off. I don't know why I'm so bad at this.
It's like Roadrunner. The ball does not drop until it looks down, and then
when the lower you are to the ground, the more of an opportunity you have to push it and make it drop. But the taller you are, the more you have to make it the peak of your arc be the center point, and it's harder. And so that's why it's a little bit harder for centers to do. But I think that part of if they go back a little bit, if they take a little bit further back, it helps a little bit with free throws. And I think that I've heard that advice a lot for people who are very tall.
You're taller. You're much taller. For like a normal person, you're very tall.
For a normal person, I'm very tall.
I am tall guy conversations.
I'm about that much taller than George Hill. That's my comparison. That's
I knew you were tall, but I saw you. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like the first thing I thought was like, oh yeah, Dave's like tall.
Not super tall. I'm like 6'4". It's not. I'm not crazy.
Yeah, but I think I'm tall, and I'm looking like up at you. That's unusual for a public interaction. You sort of work, not as much of that.
So I wonder if that's kind of because you have to push it a little bit more. It kind of helps a little bit with some of that. So I don't know if that's part of it.
I think that's the best.
I've at least heard that advice before, so maybe someone gave it to him at one point.
That's the best minute and a half of a podcast either of us have ever been on. What was that? Can I give you a crazy number? A small sample size time?
Sure, go for
Pascal Siakam on the floor. Pacers net rating this year, plus 4.92. Good. All right. Pascal Siakam off the floor, Dave. Pacers net rating this year, minus 17.47. He's pretty good. Turns out he's pretty important to the The small sample size part comes into some opponent 3-point percentaging that's helping the Pacers quite a bit when he's on and not helping when he's off. And yet you can talk about luck if you want. When the divide is 22 points per 100 possessions, it's more than luck. He's been so solid for them. Last thing I want to get to, this is not really relevant to assessing their first 10 games, but it's incredibly important to their reality. Do you think they have too few bodies right now? Can they get by with the 8 or 9 they're going to have? Or should they have to do something about this? Like, they just had to rely on, and to be clear, it worked. Like, Carlisle pushed the right buttons with the timing to play Quentin Jackson and Furphy and Freeman, but he had to play all 3 of them against a good team. Right. You don't want to have to do that, even if they did enough. Do you feel like they should be worried about this? Because this is a major thing for them right now.
Well, I said the one thing real quick is that I was really excited when the Pacers, signed Obi Toppin in the offseason because it felt like the kind of luxury that they would typically not do. And it might literally become a luxury as it starts driving them closer to the luxury tax and everything else. And it's going to be hard to make that happen. They're going to have to get creative to do it. But it's awesome to see it now because, given how many people are out, it is still kind of amazing how many NBA quality impact players are able to put out on a court on a nightly basis and get away with playing Furphy for a little bit. Man, I was hoping he was going to get his first bucket. That was
he scored 3 times this year immediately after a foul or something else, like right before he scored. Poor kid.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like they're a little thin, obviously. This is going to be maybe a little bit of a trial by fire for Walker. We talk about that, that NBA polish, to be everywhere you're supposed to be, make all the right passes. He's not there yet. Like, he's making several plays a game, and you're like, well, you just have to kind of throw that away. That's part of the development and all that sort of jazz. He has a big opportunity here to eat up a lot of minutes and do it very credibly and do it very quickly, and that can help tremendously with it. I want to see more Walker at the 5. I feel like we're going to get more of that, or
I was
out of desperation, really.
I'll let you continue in that in a second. I was joking with somebody before the last game. We spent all offseason talking about, he's transitioning positions down to the 3, and then 10 games later, you'd be like, psych, go play the 5.
Yes,
good luck.
Yeah. Obviously having him do more big minutes but it's just like almost I feel like Carlo can go to him and be like, what do you want to play now? I need everything. So what are you feeling today? You want to be the 3? You want to be the 5? What sounds good? I guess it just depends on the seriousness of the injuries to everybody else, how longer they're going to be without it. Obviously a small move makes sense. Can we take a moment to be a little bit impressed by Quentin Jackson?
He looks like an NBA player. Quentin Jackson, but I would let you do that.
Yeah.
I mean it. I
cover the man bats, baby.
I know
all about him.
A lot of Mad Ants games last year. I was like, how is this guy in the G League? And I don't mean that just like he's a rotation level NBA player.
Right.
Like no one can stay in front of him. It's so funny because he has first gear. Everybody has first gear. And he has a 5th gear that no one else has. He does not have any of the gears in between those two, but he crushes it in 1st and 5th gear.
Right. I think that there has been maybe some hope that the Pacers, they're so good at making trades, honestly, and acquiring talent via trades. Decent job of like top level draft talent. It seemed like there was a little bit of gap of 2nd round guys, late round guys from the G League. They were just really struggling to plug in gaps, and they would always have to sign older veterans that were, 2nd, 3rd contracts, just trying to plug holes that way. Your Doug McDermott's of the world, bringing them in here. I love Doug McBuckets, but they've done a really good job of continuing to just find guys that are extra throw-ins on trades, guys in the G League that are coming in and maybe playing incredible minutes. And so it'd be interesting in the short term to ride that train a little bit more, I guess, and just kind of see what they have with everybody else that they pulled into their orbit. Maybe Jackson can play 8 minutes a game and be okay. And maybe they'll be able to plug those holes. I don't know if they need a little bit of help. It sure seems the instinct is going to be that way, but I don't know if they'll go the path of, can we just get away with this until a couple of guys get back? Because I don't think they need too many other guys back to be able to make this work. I don't know how serious it, with Toppin, how long is it? Ankle? What's I don't know. Do you know anything about how long he might be out?
I don't think it will be super long, but I don't know that for sure.
I believe
it's. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, no matter what, even with, we can talk about Walker trying to do the 5 a little bit more, at least one big, it seems like they have to get somewhere. This is where Jalen Smith would be able to come in and play a little bit more. But of course he's gone. So it's like that extra guy that can come in there and soak up those minutes for a while. Not 100% sure if that's on the roster and if it ever truly will be. Yeah. And so, Jackson was basically their go-to if they were just getting murdered on rebounds and like, okay, you got to go in at least for a little bit and shore this up. They don't have that option anymore. So getting that type of player seems like it's going to have to happen no matter what. And if they were going to add one, that would probably be the number one choice. If that guy's out there, I don't have a name in mind, but
how many years in a row did they have one too many centers? And then the first year they don't.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's like, it's so funny.
2 Achilles tears in 6 games. Like, that's just terrible, man. So I have so many thoughts on this, right? Like, on one hand, I thought the whole time, I still do. I think they need to sign a center because they're one like this, Obi Toppin injury or Myles Turner foul trouble away from like, oh crap, like we can't do this. And then I say that, and then they lose Obi Toppin for a game, and Enrique Freeman does like totally fine, and then they win. I'm like, okay, maybe they don't. But Myles Turner played 39 minutes. Like they can't want that every night. They absolutely cannot want that every night, right? So I still feel like they need a big. That's totally separate. Although credit to Enrique Freeman, including Summer League and preseason, every time that dude plays, you know exactly what he's going to do, and it's kind of effective. Great, you can go match up with Jericho Sims minutes, and things will go well. But the where it gets different, and you nailed the key guy to me, it's Jarace Walker, because the starting lineup makes a ton of sense and fits if it's until December or whenever these guys are back. If it's Haliburton, Shepard, Mathurin, Siakam, Turner, great. They should have full confidence that group can work. McConnell's good. Toppin when he's back's good. In between that, they need something. And so if it's Jarace giving them extra versatility options as a defender or offensive player, that's really huge, because what McConnell's positions and roles are and what Toppin's positions and roles are really obvious, and they're rock solid. They were the playoff rotation last year. Jarace is the swing guy because they're relying on Quentin Jackson for ball handling, like right now, a lot. And so they should. He's been playing fine, but just one extra person is really helpful. And I think that Jarace is the key to kind of unlocking a lot of that, just because he can do 3, 4, 5, and everybody like, yeah, that makes sense. And if he can dribble or shoot or defend or do all these things, he's going to be the guy who plugs, I think, the most holes while they're down 2 starters, maybe not 2 starters anymore, but 2 starters at the time of their injury. It's going to be tough. It's so crazy how quickly a team can go from like, wow, their depth is incredible to like, oh crap, they need people to go play basketball.
Right. I mean, and that's one of the nice luxuries of depth is if what if they it's ironic because Toppin is injured, but if they let Toppin go and Walker was injured, I mean, where would they be now, right? Like that would be a significantly more desperate. And
James Johnson, he's ready.
Yeah, that's right. It would be awesome to see him get like
real
3 minutes game.
Real minutes. Yeah. He was the only. I thought it was very funny. He got a DNP in a game where they were down that many guys. Like I know what he's on the team. I know why he's on the team, but he was the only guy who could play that next game.
And it's also a nice luxury to have, Ben Shepard around. He looked like he might not get kind of as many minutes because it was getting squeezed out a little bit, but he's ready to go and he can soak up a lot of minutes too. And that's a nice luxury to have. Again, another guy, obviously first round pick, but still, I mean, I'd consider that a pretty good find for the Pacers to be able to get. And hopefully they can keep that pipeline going. We barely saw Furphy play. He kind of jogged around a little bit like someone who joined in a new group at the Y, kind of afraid to get too involved, just sort of jog from one end to end. So maybe he can play. I mean, it'd be cool to see him. I mean, that was one of the maybe hopefully benefits from him is that the game that he had, he was playing kind of a pro style offensive game, but just constantly moving around and hitting shots. If he could just do that at the NBA level, it could be that he's able to credibly play, 10 minutes a game or something like that. That would be at least worth considering before really going to the well to try to bring in like a veteran wing or something like that.
It didn't really feel like it mattered at the time because they have a lot of young guys who are scrapping for minutes. But now that they're in this situation, Furphy missing preseason does actually sting because it's really early and they need this. They need it. Even if it's only 5 minutes, like please sub Jarace or Siakam or whoever out. Like they need to be healthy and ready to go. So it does hurt a little, but getting him time and real minutes, real rotation time, I thought would be hard this year, and it probably still will be in general. Like he's only playing 4.5 minutes, but that's still valuable. And the Maddens are home this week, so maybe he could split some time there and get tiny game action with Pacers, real game action with Maddens. We'll see. Dave, this was perfect. This is every topic I wanted to talk about today, including free throw physics with demonstrations. Where can people find you and the things you have to say about basketball or non-basketball if you'd like to promote other things?
I mean, you can find me on Twitter. I'm still tweeting maybe once a game or so. So get real excited when that one tweet comes out. You can feel free to find me there. If you're shopping for a house, let me know. And then pretty much there. Either that or the Locked On podcast.
That's right. Because you're home now.
It is. It feels like it, at least.
You're allowed to talk. I guess you're allowed to talk about that you're a mortgage broker. I don't. It's fine. Yes, fine,
It's
Dave.
it's more out of trying not to bore people. But
it's on the screen.
It's
it is on the screen. Yes, Dave's wants a tweet game about people in front of him Googling Benn Mathruin or clowning accounts that kind of incorrectly, but kind of correctly get that 2 Pacers scored 35 points in a game for the first time, and assuming it's a bot AI account are worth the follow.
I gotta say, I was a little annoyed when someone was like, obviously it doesn't include the playoffs. Like, no, it doesn't. Those records do include the playoffs. You have to specify that it's regular season. If you say franchise history, that includes the playoffs. Excuse me. Pardon my language, Tony. I know you don't like salty language on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
Insulting? I don't think that's insulting.
No, salty, like a sailor.
Salty. Yeah, I'm gonna type down when you said that.
Is it really gonna get bleeped? Oh, that's great.
Yes, it will. I am also.
But please, I just ask one thing.
Okay.
Don't do the silence. Give me a big okay. Just this one time. Give me a big
Are you going to edit it?
I mean, no. No, the number one reason why I don't do podcasts anymore is because I don't have the time to edit anymore. And so, no, thank you.
Cutting out the word takes me about 40 milliseconds. Inserting a beep and lining it up perfectly with the timing in another track.
Come on. The way you can't read waveforms. Come on, Tony. Come on. You've been doing this enough that you should be able to read it.
I believe I just heard you say that's
good.
I am also on Twitter at Tony R. East. I'm not good at it. I've only they don't have a word for it. I have a Blue Sky account now. I don't know. It's not tweeted. I have skied one time. It is also Tony R. East on there. For those of you who are migrating away for reasons. I think you have a Blue Sky, don't you?
I probably. I think that I signed up for it when everybody else did.
I set it up forever ago when they were doing the code invites just in case. I'm glad I did now because there are a lot of people on there. Back tomorrow talking some Orlando Magic and some other topics that I decide to dive into. I might do a deeper dive on Siakam's start to the season. I think that sounds extremely interesting, mostly for me, but also for you guys. Thank you guys for listening. See you very soon.